Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Mark, and I'm the Managing Director of Google Malaysia. Now, before I begin, a public service announcement. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, don't go out if you don't need to, and let's together eliminate COVID-19. 2020. And my guess for a good early portion of 2021, the pandemic will continue to rage. But I'm very optimistic about the future of Malaysia. And as part of our event today, we want to take a peek into Malaysia's digital future and how we can chart a path forward. So my humble views don't speak for all. So I'm joined by esteemed leaders and CEOs who I will introduce in a minute. Now, before that, I want to draw a quick attention to the recent 2020 e-Conomy report published by us, Google, Bain, and Temasek. The report highlights some promising takeaways and most importantly showcases the increasing significance of the internet to our overall economy. So 3 findings stood out for me. Number 1 is in the past 12 months in 2020, predominantly, 1 in 3 Malaysians use digital services for the first time ever. So think about e-commerce, groceries, healthcare, education, online media that are now being used by 1/3 of the population for the first time in 2020. So my uncle who swears by going to the supermarket to select the freshest ingredients is trusting the online platforms more and more. Number 2, e-commerce in Malaysia. The total GMV or gross merchandising value grew an astounding 87% year over year. And this number represents the highest level of growth across all countries in Southeast Asia. So my wife won't disagree with this figure. She buys on average 1 item every 2 to 3 days. And number 3, last but not least, having great talent. The human capital, well-versed in all aspects of the digital economy, continues to be the biggest factor to ensure we become a digital first and hopefully high income nation. Now, without further ado, allow me to introduce my fellow panelists. Each of them a master of their own domain, and each of them I respect and admire. So without further ado, first up, we have Gurkhan Ogat, CEO of Maxis. And Maxis as a telco needs no further introduction. But I gotta say, I've admired Gurkhan's vision to bring Maxis to the forefront of connectivity, especially in homes. So Gurkhan, Happy New Year again, and thanks for being here. Over to you.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this panel. I'm really grateful and I'm looking forward to it. Like you said, yes, we're going through some gloomy days. It's like the Malaysian winter. The clouds are dark, but there is definitely light at the end of the clouds. There will be brighter days. And this is what I would like to talk to you about, the bright future that Malaysia has.
Thank you. We also have with us today Surina Shukri, CEO of MDEC. And MDEC is our nation's foremost champion for digitalization, be it powering digital within MDEC itself, businesses, investments, as well as digitally upskilling Malaysians. So Surina, we're all excited to hearing more from you, and I'll pass the mic over to you.
Thank you so much. So 2020 was a busy year for us, and I suspect 2021 is going to continue to be a busy year. But the great thing is that I think we all unanimously agree that digital and technology, everybody realizes how essential it is. And now it's not a matter of why, it's a matter of how.
Next, we have Sean Goh. Sean is the Managing Director of Grad Malaysia. And Grad, dare I say, is one of the most innovative players in the digital services space. And definitely one that I look up to as a SEA or Southeast Asia originated disruptor. Sean, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Very happy to be here with everyone. And I'm especially happy to be focusing on topics of progress. Like how can we make change, good change in sort of amidst really a lot of chaotic uncertainty, right, for the country. So really happy to be focusing on something positive for a change.
Thanks, Sean. And lastly, we have Suzanne. Suzanne's the co-founder of Pizza Eats. And Pizza Eats help put food on our tables while helping the refugee community achieve financial stability. Arguably challenging to do so in the situation that we're in today, but it is entrepreneurs like Suzanne who can really make it happen. Suzanne, over to you.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really humbled to be part of this and to be representing social enterprise and also SMEs. I think the last year, 2020, has been really challenging as many other businesses. And I think specifically for the SMEs, we realized that a lot of our other friends from the same sector, they are, most of us, we are struggling with like cash flow and even digitalizing ourselves, even as simple as going onto social media, it's quite a struggle for a lot of SMEs who do not have that kind of background. So I do see that it's been quite a challenging year, and moving forward this year, hopefully we get to catch up better as well.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, everyone. Before we move right into our Q&A, to the audience watching, we have 2 call-outs for you to participate and engage with our panelists today. So number 1 is join our live chat and feel free to share your thoughts, reactions, and questions. Towards the end of this session, we will get our panelists to answer 2 questions. Our teams will be scanning the questions, so feel free to throw them into the live chat box. Number 2 is to encourage our panelists to give their most exciting and imaginative views of the future. Not that I think anyone needs to be incentivized. We'll all get you, the audience, to decide whose version of the future, the crystal ball, you find resonates with you the most. Okay, so let's kick it off then. The first question of this panel discussion is 2020. Not too long ago, it's a year that saw an acceleration of digital adoption and consumption. So I would say that Malaysians now depend on this utility now more than ever. So the question is, what do you think will be the most unexpected trend no one is seeing today for the Malaysia digital economy in the next 5 years? So the most unexpected trend, Malaysia digital in the next 5 years. Surina, if I can get you to kick us off.
When I started, in fact, actually this week will be my two-year anniversary. The conversation, when I took on this role, the conversation was still a lot of why, digital, there's a lot of convincing. And so this time around, that no longer is the case, it's the case of how. So one trend that I am really hoping to see from here on is the adoption trend and the startups stepping up to help drive that, because the big issue that we have, the big challenge that we have ahead of us is how quickly and how fast can we adopt at scale. And so we already saw that last year. COVID was the push that had that momentum. And so we need to continue on with that momentum and make sure that not just that we're all adopting digital technologies and really going along that line of, for the most part, I think what we saw this 2020 was it's that first part of the digital journey. I'm hoping that the unexpected trend will be, because we default to semua tak boleh, but no, Malaysia boleh, and then we will really adopt the other facets of digital technology as well, not just the front line, i.e. the e-commerce part, but digitalization of the middle part of the business process and all the innovation that comes thereafter.
Great, I like that. I think it's the how you mentioned about the velocity matters and the unexpected trend in changing the mindsets of Malaysians, as well as targeting not just the front part of the business, but the middle and the back end. I like that. Thank you, Surina. Gurkan, unexpected trends, Malaysia digital in the next 5 years. What do you think?
The most unexpected. The trends, I'm not sure, but what will bring it? I am quite sure. 5G for me will be the most unexpected trend. It reminds me of back in 2012-13. We were expecting 4G to bring higher bandwidth. We were expecting 4G to bring higher speeds, but none of us actually expected how it really changed our lives. All the things that we used to talk about in the 90s and beginning of 2000s were actually realized behind 4G and the mobility that it brought. For example, Sean, the Grab, I don't think there could have been a company named Grab without 4G, right?
Yeah,
This
that's
whole mobility.
absolutely right.
Yep. So we know that 5G will be bringing higher bandwidth. We know that it will be bringing faster speeds. It will be bringing very, very low latency. There are use cases that we talk about now, but I think the most unexpected will be how big some of these use cases will be, and all the things that we cannot even imagine today that will be really changing our lives behind the technology that 5G will be bringing in. Across all industries, I believe it will be possible, connecting devices, connecting things, agriculture to start with, how it will change behind 5G, and manufacturing, and of course the lives of our lives, individuals, behind some of the technologies that we've been talking about, AR, VR, but never really picked up so far, which I believe will be a reality behind 5G.
Okay, thanks, Kakan. So you mentioned about the limitless possibilities of 5G and how the economy and businesses will transform with it. As we say in Google, uncomfortably exciting the next 5 years would be in this space. Suzanne, if I can get you to lend in your view.
Yeah, I would say last year has been quite a shock to many of us on how fast customer actually move digital. So I would say moving forward in the next 5 years, the unexpected trend will very likely be it's going to be even faster than we expect. Like my parents who are in their 60s recently found the joy of shopping from Shopee, and they just buy cabinets one after another. So I think moving forward, people of all different age group will really get digital, and for SMEs to catch up, we really do need to catch up really fast. And even things that are like virtual events, virtual concerts, virtual experiences, I think those, seeing how the situation is for this year, those will also continue to grow. So for SMEs and for basically any players in the industry, it's really important for us to catch on this trend and don't get left behind. So yeah.
Okay, faster adoption. Different age groups, got to adopt much faster as well. SMEs catching up is non-negotiable, as well as your house full of cabinets. Okay, Sean, you want to close us off on this question?
Yeah, I honestly struggle to add much to what the very smart folks at Google and Bain already see coming. But there is one potentially unexpected shift, I think that's pretty close to my heart, which is that Malaysians will become more and more equal as human beings and equal in terms of opportunities. And I say this is unexpected because it's, for the most part, not wholly deliberate. After all, big innovation usually focuses on mass markets. That's the early wave, right? But this change relies a lot on the resourcefulness of the communities to make the most of it. So let me give some examples, right? Some years ago, if you're a taxi passenger, you need to say where you're going. You need to give directions verbally. But now that ride-hailing is fully digital, thanks to Google Maps and Waze as well, thanks to Maxis and 4G, members of our deaf community have now received commercial licenses for the first time in our nation's history to be able to earn an income flexibly. And that's just the beginning, right? This year, there's so much more we can do. We hope to do the same for F&B. I mean, for example, there are QR menus everywhere now, digital ordering and digital payments. Anyone can do a great job in the service industry, regardless whether yours is a spoken language or a sign language, right? And it doesn't even have to end there with today's technologies. If you're taking a 5-year view, imagine we were a little bit more deliberate in making tech work for everyone. I believe that with LiDAR and cameras everywhere, with AI and 5G, we should have, by the end of 5 years, real-time translation between sign and verbal language, between written and spoken language. It sounds kind of far-fetched, but really, look at Google Translate today. I point my camera, I can see something, I can read something in a different language, real-time. So the technologies that enable sign to verbal, written to spoken, they're all there. And, as I mentioned, these changes weren't wholly deliberate. It relied on a lot of resourcefulness. For example, I really like the story a friend of mine at the Malaysian Federation of the Deaf told me, which was that a deaf driver was able to communicate with a blind passenger. And we didn't plan for that. It's not credit to us, it's credit to them, because they used Grab Chat plus text to voice and voice to text, which is really amazing. One of my favorite stories. And I think what's cool is that digital growth has this knock-on effect, has this potential to make change that we didn't see coming. So just imagine what we could do if we actually turned our mind to it.
Thanks for sharing, Sean. So, my takeaway from this is the internet economy not just drives incremental economic value, but it promotes more inclusivity for all segments in our society, and that's really heartwarming. Thank you. I'll ask some follow-up questions. Sean, since I have you here, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and maybe bring us down to where we are at the moment. So, as with any industry going through a disruption at breakneck speeds, Grab is often sort of like leading the way, right? So food delivery, like what you mentioned, is one example. What other sectors you'd like to see that sort of like leadership continue, that leadership in disruption, leadership in pivoting, and what can we expect from Grab or your competitors within the same industry in the coming years?
Yeah, so thanks for that, giving us a lot of credit. Frankly, we are still learning. There's a lot more progress to be made. One industry where I'm really keen to see change come to that industry is actually groceries and the wider sort of like fast e-commerce industry, which is very, very broad. It's not just about Grab, many players in this space. The biggest change that I think will drive this kind of progress is a shift from convenience to actual true value and affordability. So, just taking an example, right? If you look at ride hailing, it started out as a convenience product. People didn't want to have to park. Maybe people went out late at night and had some drinks, didn't want to drive. Over time, it evolved into a value product. So we have huge segments of students using ride hailing because then they don't have to spend money owning and maintaining a car, right? If you look at groceries today, it's the same dynamic. Food and groceries, it really is about convenience, right? Sure, you can save on parking. Maybe if you're ride hailing, you save on your car. But for the most part, it is about saving time. I think the big shift that I hope industry leaders and players and restaurants and businesses will work together on is to shift towards helping people actually save money, which is very important in this time when people are actually impacted by the pandemic as well as the rising cost of living. If you guys think back to before the pandemic, a big topic was cost of living. And this requires a big shift in mindset. So it's not just about instant deliveries anymore, for example. For our supermarket, we're looking at next day deliveries, not only so that we can batch more orders, but also so that we can order and source direct from farms just in time so that there's zero wastage. And also so we can support the smaller farms. And then finally, another similar example is we moved into pasars, food courts, really moving into the mass mainstream market, thinking about affordability. That's going to be the biggest change, where people save time and spend less online.
Okay, thanks, Sean. So, if I can sort of like, correlate this to what MDEC has been doing. So MDEC has been a fantastic champion for digitalization in Malaysia. Would you say this past year's challenges with COVID represent a significant hurdle to our mission, to your mission at MDEC? And based on your earlier response to the future of the digital economy, what do you think are going to be the new challenges we will need to tackle, right? In light of what Sean said.
There are many things that we need to do. It's a question of scaling. And so how do you do that? How do you scale? How do you scale to make sure that programs that we have already that's working, that the first 20% started to adopt, can reach the masses very quickly? And so this is the sort of thing that we're all in the industry trying to figure out right now. And so one side of it is, of course, MDEC, we work with all of you. You all are our partners to help drive this whole adoption push, this training push, this mobilization of of the masses. Now, of course, in doing that, speed to execution is key, and which means that now we're all learning how to better work together, to collaborate together. And then collaborations with Grab and Maxis and Google, Google is instrumental to actually help train teachers during the time that we were all trying to figure out how to do online training. So this whole figuring out how to maximize synergies amongst the key players is key. Coordination. On the government side, we're trying to do that as well. We've kicked off in the third quarter and fourth quarter many different task force, many different councils, because at the end of the day, we all know it's not, digital is not an application, it's not just one thing. It's many different things. And so this whole challenge of coordination, I think is key. For companies, internal, like corporates, everybody's going through their quote unquote digital transformation, and then like learning how to work across different divisions and businesses and functions and whatnot, because you need like teams. The same is true at the whole macro Malaysia level. So execution, coordination, I think, is something that we're going to need to challenge ourselves on how to do better and how to do together.
I totally agree with you. I think execution and coordination is severely underrated when it comes to adoption as well as transformation. Gurkhan, speaking about transformation, keen to know how these new consumer behaviors, right, are shaping how telcos in Malaysia and Maxis in particular create for the future.
Sure. As we are all aware, COVID really changed the way we live and we do work. As we've been discussing, we've been using a lot more collaboration tools. We've been working from home. We've been doing more online and grocery shopping. And all these actually rests on a reliable connectivity. And this is where the telcos and this is where Maxis come in. Since the beginning of MCO, we've seen traffic increases all the way from 30, 40, 50% to 100%, doubling the internet traffic that lays on our infrastructure. And this has been a challenge to cope up with this surge in traffic, as well as the changing location of the internet traffic moving from the roads and offices all the way to homes. And as Maxis, we've been committed to providing connectivity to Malaysia for the last 25 years. We just celebrated our 25th year in August. And from day one, our purpose, our mission has been bringing the best of technologies to the nation, to the people and enterprises, companies in Malaysia, to help them always be ahead in a changing times. And we're continue to committed to this, and we've been increasing our investments to be able to provide this ubiquitous connectivity. Now, not only in mobility areas, but also at homes, as evidenced by our strategy of connecting more homes with fiber. I really cannot agree more with Surina. We cannot do this alone by ourselves. This is why we are also a big supporter of government's program called Jandela. Jandela's objective is, in order to cope with this increasing demand, to really make sure that 4G availability and fiber availability in the nation is at the maximum levels. To Sean's point, really trying to give everybody in Malaysia an equal opportunity by providing connectivity to everybody wherever they are, whoever they are. And we have also been a big supporter of the Jandela program, and in a unique position in the industry, because we support both mobile and as well as fixed ambitions of the nation, not only building 4G connectivity, but also increasing the fiber connectivity in the country. And we will continue to invest in these two important areas.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to 100% penetration of fiber in Malaysia. Last question to you, Suzanne. So this question is around talent. it's widely recognized that talent or the capabilities of our workforce plays a very critical role, like what we mentioned just now, and according to the surveys, right? Malaysia arguably has a long way to go in either upskilling as well as attracting digitally ready talent. So, in your opinion, what are the gaps, and how do we overcome it?
Yeah, I would say currently, even for us, Picha Eats, our biggest struggle is actually talent. So we know that we need to digitalize a lot of things, back end, front end. Our website can be better. And we've been actually trying to hire in the past at least 3 to 6 months a good digital talent, but it's been really challenging. So now, thankfully, we do have a friend who does it for us, and he from someone. From the digital scene, he also shared that even for himself, he has to outsource certain IT work to, overseas, because the talent here is really not sufficient. And I would say that the good talents has been hired by most of like the big digital companies here in Malaysia. Generally, a lot of people in Malaysia, we don't take as much initiative to learn the latest update, the latest version, which cause a lot of talent here to be lacking quite behind. So that's the overall view that I have seen, where when someone comes for an interview for the digital position, they don't understand the let's say the programming language that we are using, because it's a new one, and when they graduated, they didn't learn that. And in the whole process, as things are changing, they also didn't catch up or upskill themselves. So I would say I've spoke to quite a few people, and a lot of people actually shared that the gap is in people who is already in the scene, upgrading themselves, upskilling themselves, and keeping themselves updated with the latest like programming language and things like that. So yeah, it's quite a big challenge in the whole SME scene, I would say.
Right, and if I may add, part of the challenge is the fact that the system that we have today, like Malaysia is largely a lot of SMEs. And so they're small companies of 20, 30, 40. We have lots of them. And so if you're a large company, for example, all the corporates, the talent, the skilling, the learning, you've got teams and teams of people that are dedicated towards that. And typically the better ones, you have the benefit of numbers. But for us in Malaysia, the challenge is it's small companies. There's many of these, and so we need to think through how we get the benefit of fast learning and learning from each other. Because most of the time, the corporate experience, for example, you get to also learn from each other. But what we have is it's small companies, and so the question then becomes: how do you create systems? How do you create communities that can foster this ongoing training and learning? And so that's something that we need to figure out.
Thanks, Surina. Thank you, Suzanne. We've covered a lot of ground today, but unfortunately we are at time for this first part. So with Gurkhan, Surina, Sean, and Suzanne, thank you so much. I trust we all receive an insider view of the exciting developments we should expect from our digital economy and from the sectors that all of you represent. I, for one, am a big proponent of getting Malaysians ready for the next decade, talent, getting the adoption up and running, so on and so forth, like what we mentioned just now. And I can see a lot of ways in which Google can play a bigger role with all of you, right, on this panel. So one quick reminder before we transition off. Number one, get ready to vote. Who among your panelists, except me, has the vision of a digital Malaysia that resonates the most with you? Secondly, I can already see a good few questions coming in on the live chat. Please continue to do so. In our next section, we'll get our panelists to share their views. Number three, I was also told that the questions that are answered will receive a special prize sponsored by our marketing team. How generous of them. So yeah, that's a wrap for the first session. Thank you once again, everyone. Let's take a few seconds of break to freshen up before we go to the questions and audience voting. Stay tuned. Thank you. And we're back. Okay, so we're freshened up a little bit. We even had a chance to change our clothes and let our hair grow a little. Now, before we go to Slido to vote on the panelist vision for the next 5 years that resonated the most with you, it's time to select our top 2 questions from the audience. The first question is from Yunkit. Yunkit, good to have you here. Hope you are keeping well. Yunkit's question is around the broadening of digital divide, and it goes, has there been a broadening of digital divide due to services going online? And what are your respective organizations addressing it? So for example, is there affordable telco packages even more for the masses, as well as availability of offline services online? I guess this ties in very much to Gurkhan's comment on continuing to increase coverage, internet coverage across Malaysia, 5G, as well as home convergence, right? Home fiber. Gurkhan, if I can get you to go out and address this question first.
Thank you very much, Mark. On the contrary, I believe the advancement of technology, advancement of connectivity is actually not broadening the digital divide, but on the contrary, is actually democratizing many of the services, many of the products and availability of services to masses. Of course, there are pockets of coverage that would require to be completed, as I was alluding to it. And that's where the Jandela program comes in. We need to finish up the whole Malaysia in terms of coverage. But in terms of mobile, 4G now, and in the future 5G, availability of mobile is actually enabling many individuals, many SMEs, many companies and entrepreneurs to have a reach to all Malaysia and to all services and products. So it has an effect of democratizing what's available. And we will continue to help this democratization by making sure the coverage is available, as well as affordability of the packages. If you look at the industry for the last 5 years, you will see that the data cost, the price of data for customers has been going down. And this is how we're enabling by both providing the coverage and also the affordability of the connectivity.
Thank you. Sean, you made a comment on how technology helps, humans, Malaysians, essentially get more equal treatment, right? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I agree with Gokhan's point that, digital can be a very powerful tool to actually narrow that divide. But when we think about that digital divide, I think the focus would be not to make sure we sort of remove that divide, right? It would be actually on making sure that the non-digital, the offline world has easy, equal access to the digital economy. So just to give some examples, right? For a few years, we ran a very low-profile program called Grad Heroes, and basically this is where people volunteered to help the elderly community access online services, figure out how to download and use mobile apps to get mobility. And I mentioned earlier that the deaf and blind communities have managed to find a way to utilize these digital platforms for both income and mobility. But we're just scratching the surface, right? We haven't, people in this room, I think, haven't done enough. Definitely Grab hasn't done enough. A lot of this has been created by the community. And then finally, just traditional offline businesses going online. We have programs, for example, one called Local Heroes, where we bring pasar vendors, kueh sellers online into the ecosystem. So these are just some examples, but don't get me wrong. I think, there's still a long way to go, and this is definitely a big focus for us going forward.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Gurkhan, for your earlier response. Second question is from Mr. Shukri Jeffrey. Shukri, thank you so much for your question. He asked, throughout this pandemic, in order to achieve a digitized Malaysia in the future, what is your view on how the recent graduate or maybe the upcoming workforce can penetrate or thrive in the digital world? Serena, your comment around SMEs who must form a network and partnerships with each other to help upskill our citizens, right, is is coming to mind. So I'd love to turn to you to provide some advice here.
Always happens. So I would say here that when we think about the digital world, when you think about where we're going, the first thing that we all have to remember, and it's not just recent graduates, but even people in the workforce, we have to recognize that in now and tomorrow, it's all about skills. So you got to lead with skills. You got to make sure that you have the skills. So it's not all theory, so it's skills. And so take the first step is to really recognize what kind of skills do you have, and then start to recognize and fill in your skills toolbox, if you will. So for example, on our website right now at MDEC, we've got a whole directory of here are all the skills that's required for the future. It could be like thinking skills, coding skills, but it's a skills-based thing. And so if you can demonstrate that, and you bring your ability to storytell your that what you bring to the table, that's companies and everything will look forward to having you on board, because it's really a skill-based environment. So yeah, the other thing when we think about what's required, how can recent graduates actually thrive in this digital world, is you have to have this a sense of curiosity. So this new world for our digital, it's all about change. Things are changing all the time. So you have to be grounded by that. So SMEs, for example, you mentioned that they all have problems that they need to solve. And so if you are able to have the sense of curiosity to understand, like, what is that problem? What are they trying to, and bring your skill set, it doesn't matter what kind of background you actually have. You're able to actually contribute to the new, digital world, if you will.
Thank you, Sorina. Suzanne, you made a comment earlier about how recent graduates, or upon graduating school, the need to reskill constantly and consistently to be very much in touch with the ongoing changes in our lives, the economy, is very, very essential. Would you like to chime in more?
Yeah, I would say talking in a more active approach from the graduate point of view, I would say as recent graduate, if you think that coding and programming and all that is too far from you, I would suggest the practical ways to even start off is maybe look into how to set up online businesses, even on Shopify, Lazada and all, because you will be surprised that there's many SMEs who maybe from who really don't know how to do that. So if you are in this like gig economy where you help small businesses to set up online store, that can be a job for you as well. Or even looking into social media management, content planning, phone photography, copywriting, all these are also a layer of digitalization on social media before we go into coding and all that. So I would say for anyone who wants to go into this scene to be part of the digitalization, it is not just about coding. There is a lot more layer to that we can do. And I also see one of the questions asked, like, as a social enterprise, are we doing anything about that? So when MCO started, we actually started training refugee teenagers to do design using Canva, so they don't need to have like Photoshop and all that, so that they can eventually start doing graphic design for social medias for other brands out there who might not be able to engage with big agencies. So these are all little things that we can start doing. And I think my point is that to get into this scene, you just need to start somewhere. It doesn't have to be like coding. That's the take on that.
Okay, thank you so much for the response, and thank you, Shukri and Yunkit for the questions. Totally agree. I think constant skilling is super essential for all of us to be relevant, right? For the next decade or so. And driving more digital equality is essential for our economic growth and economic recovery. So thank you once again. Congratulations on your live questions being selected for our panel. As mentioned, we love to incentivize folks who speak up. So do reach out to our team, whose email is posted in the live chat below, to collect your rewards. And in the powers above we trust, everyone else bring data or opinions. It's now time to gather some aggregated and democratic inputs from our live audience. For those who are tuning in, please head over to slido.com, enter the code FutureMy, one word without spaces, FutureMy, so we can vote on the vision of the future, each uniquely shared by our panelists earlier, and do select the one that resonates the most with you. So Slido.com, enter the code FutureMy and just simply select the vision of the future that resonates the most with you. Okay. Instructions are also written at the bottom part of the video, so please go forth. And while we're waiting for the votes to stroll in, allow me to recap what the panelists have just shared with us for the past 40 minutes. Surina thinks that our nation can achieve great progress, and not just the front-end portion of digitization, which includes e-commerce and marketing, but also anticipates the middle and back-end portion of the supply chains and business processes to innovate tremendously in the next few years. Gurkhan is extremely upbeat on the new spectrum and the possibilities it will bring to Malaysia. He mentioned 5G will give birth to future technologies or even business solutions we have not even dreamed of, such as in the areas of AR, VR, IoT, as well as transforming sectors such as agriculture and manufacturing. And the question begs, right? Could we see 5G giving rise to the next, unicorn, to the next decacorn, like Grad? Sean, in his heartwarming take of the future, said that technology advancements will make Malaysians more equal. I totally agree. For example, a deaf driver communicating with a blind passenger. All this made possible with AI and 5G, and bridging the gap even more between verbal, signed, written, or spoken communications. Lastly, Suzanne from Picha Eats is very optimistic that the digital adoption will accelerate even faster than last year, than in 2020, across different segments, across different age groups, and no one will be left behind. She foresees a whole new take on conferences, events, concerts, user experiences that will be the new growth drivers for all businesses, big and small. Okay, so we've got close to 200 votes. We will maybe wait a bit more for more to trickle in. Right now, I can see it's a pretty close fight across 3 people. I won't say who, but we'll wait another 30 seconds before we close the poll. Okay. And we're done. The polling is closed. Thank you so much for your votes. Highly encouraging to see a strong engagement from the audience. And it looks like we've got a winner. So congratulations, Sean. Your statement around technology will make Malaysians more equal, drive more equality in our society, and economic opportunity resonated the most with our audience today. You've got the popular vote, and when we reflect in a few years' time, we're going to keep your statement in mind, hold you semi-accountable. I joke, but
please do.
But my takeaway across all inputs today I've heard so far is that Malaysia is full of possibilities and a future that bridges the inequality gap. So thank you to all panelists for your immensely diverse perspective. And with that, brings our event to a close. But you can also read more about the findings in Malaysia and Southeast Asia in the link that we have in the description box below. I hope everyone who's tuning in today found this to be a productive discussion. We'd love to hear how we can make our events even better for you in future. So fill up the feedback form. Feedback is very much appreciated. With that, thank you once again to all our panelists for joining us, and our audience for being super engaged virtually. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.